Hey everyone, welcome to the Lake Michigan Angler Podcast. Today we are here with Nick Van Gompel, the winner of the 2022 Salmonarama, and if you didn't know already, he won it in a kayak.
Yes, which is a huge deal, accomplishment, and of course it had everyone talking. Definitely one of the most talked about Salmonoramas this year. And before we kind of get to that story, you were a guest on last season, right? Weren't you? Yeah, we had you on last year as well. Yep. But just to kind of refamiliarize you with everyone that's watching, a little bit about your history kayak fishing. What got you into it? How long you've been doing it? Just a little recap.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate that. I've been in kayak fishing. I think I got into it probably in 2014, 2015. When I first, moved up to Manitowoc, I had my first job out of college there. Looking for a way to get out more and fish more often, specifically on Lake Michigan is how I started. And I really bought a kayak intended just to do that. I got involved with the Great Lakes series, and I've been fishing their events ever since. The first event I was with was one of their kayak salmon events on Lake Michigan out of Manitowoc in the fall for that fall run. And then I just kept doing the bass events the next year because they're like, hey, you want to come back and do the bass things next spring? Yeah, sure. Who can't catch a bass from a kayak? Now I have a couple $1,000s of bass tackle and a bunch of rods that I didn't have before, and here we are. So I've been doing it since 2014. Pretty religiously since. It's great. I really love it. Enjoy the kayak fishing. It's a great way to get out on the water. You don't have to have all the storage space for a boat. You don't have to maintain a boat. It's a little bit easier. So I love it.
It's crazy because you have a connection to that. Like you were part of that early on, right? Like the GL.
Yeah, so I was founding member of the Great Lakes Kayak Fishing Series. Like the whole thing was actually my idea. And then I kind of moved away from it, and couple of people were running it after me, and Nick took it over and really improved it.
Yeah, I remember that. What was that like for you to decide to step into that? 'Cause that's a lot of responsibility when you are trying to organize any kind of sense of a community. Let's just kind of more broadly, trying to organize a community to do events for, with, and so on. What was it for you that made you want to step up into the role?
I think out of necessity. We we had a good core group of anglers that were fishing routinely and really good anglers. We kind of lost that person that was that director role. So you do make mentally, it is a transition going from solely prepping for tournament fishing to prepping a tournament for other people to fish. So you have a little bit different focus, a little bit, more of a risk kind of mentality going into it. You also have to do a lot of the prep work. So everyone just preps before a tournament. You do a little pre-fishing, but really the tournament prep stuff started probably in October into November. We're waiting for permits to get approved for this next season as well. So we're still in that prep stage right now.
So it's always like a constant thing. Do you get to enjoy it yourself because you're running it? Do you get to still enjoy it as much?
Yeah, I try to. So I do the judging for the fish, but I don't do that during tournament hours. I wait until afterward. It is not quite as enjoyable. You spend more time prepping. You spend more time worrying about safety of other anglers and things like that. Like, is the weather coming in? Is that storm going to go to the north? And all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when you get a chance to fish for a tournament that's not directly something you're running, that's kind of like yes, I get my chance to just go out and enjoy.
Yeah, it's a little less stress. You can just go out there and just fun fish.
Hence leading into Salmonarama. Yeah. That's what we want to talk about, obviously. So if for those of you who are not familiar, quickly recap Salmonarama. I'm sure most already know, but it's by far the largest salmon fishing tournament on Lake Michigan. I think it's no question about it in terms of it's a week-long or so, right? Week-long event. So many different categories. You've got youth categories. You've got all the various species, including walleye. Was walleye ed this year? Or there was
No, they actually got rid of walleye, I think. But we had it for a few years. But yeah, you've got shore fishing. You've got carp you can win with.
Yeah.
I mean,
perch.
Perch division. Yeah. There's shore fishing. There's youth. There's so many different things you can win. There's the biggest of each species. There's like your top 5. There's the Grand Slam. There's Master Angler. There's all these different ways that you can win.
Yeah, it's a massive event, and of course, a big salute to the folks that work all of that, because we did 2 live streams with for Salmonarama for the weigh-ins.
The weigh-ins, yep.
And when I was there, seeing them orchestrate that all was pretty incredible. Like the work that goes into it. So big kudos to the team out there for doing it, because for many anglers in our area, it's a big thing folks are looking forward to every year. It gives many an excuse to go fish for a whole week straight, right? You get the wife, honey, this is my week, this is where I'm going out. So it gives everyone a chance to just go out and fish, compete. Everyone likes to have a little competition and stuff like that. And again, it's just a wide, massive thing. Now, how long have you been participating in Salmonarama? Specifically, and we're talking about, Nick is a kayak angler, and so Salmonarama's had this kayak division for some time now. Mm-hmm. How long have you been competing in it?
Man, I can't remember the first year I fished Salmonarama. It may have been 2016 or 2017. I'd have to look back. I'm not 100% sure. So less than 10, definitely more than, I think probably 5 or 6 years I fished it.
Yeah. And what's the experience been like for you year over year with the kayak experience in Salmonarama?
In Salmonarama, well, I think the first year was my worst year ever. I went out, that's when I was pulling dipsy divers. If anybody has fished with dipsy divers, you understand why they're sighing here. They have a ton of resistance on your rod, and it's just all of that resistance when you're kayak fishing is that much more effort you have to put into moving forward. Yeah. So it just was really challenging. It was like a 90-degree day. I fished for like 11 straight hours without a bite, and I came back to the beach, and I think someone that was just having fun on the beach ended up helping me pull my kayak up the beach because I physically couldn't walk anymore. I was just physically exhausted. And that's just another element of the kayak division that keeps it so interesting is you got to be like, you don't have to be in great physical shape, but you got to be a little prepped because if you go out there and try to do a 12-hour stretch, you're going to be in some pain.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's not just that one day because guys are fishing. They'll do a morning run up. You're launching at 3:30 in the morning, some guys. And you'll grind it out till 10, 11. They might take the midday nap or whatever, and then they're right back out by like 5 o'clock to fish the whole sundown.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one day, and they're doing it for 7 days.
Exactly. And if you get there at 3:30, you might not even be the first guy there. There might be 2 other kayakers already out there, and you can just see
I'm sure we know who the one specifically will be out there at 2 a.m.
There's a couple that we all know get there really early, and hats off to them.
I mean, there was a couple years we were just pulling all-nighters out there. There'd be a whole group just fishing all night long into the morning. Yep.
Wow. I'm always. There's one thing. The one area that gets me a little on the edge is night fishing on Lake Michigan. It's always, unless it's flat calm or from like right outside the harbor mouth where there's still got ambient light coming from the city and I can see a little bit of what's happening in front of me, but to be in the total darkness and you can't see the waves coming in, it freaks me out. Even to this day, so it gets me a little edgy, man. So,
and then where most of the kayakers are fishing for Salmonarama, there's no lights on shore.
No, it's dark. Yeah, it's very dark up there.
It really is. So here we are, 2022. Give us a setup here for what your game plan was going into Salmonarama in terms of how are we thinking about fishing, kind of recap the weather patterns and what it was looking like and your thought process on how you were going to go out there and fish it. Yeah,
sure thing. So I think this was a really unique year this past year for everybody. I was still pulling Coho rigs up to the end of June. In fact, the Stubby Dodger, I thought Salmonarama was going to go out there and just run 3 of those the whole tournament because that was still outproducing everything else right through the end of June. I did a couple test runs, the end of June to get ready, really to figure out what they're biting on, get some experience because it's one thing to go out there and catch a fish, but a king, a 20-plus pound king is a different battle. You have to make sure that you understand how to net it, and it sounds dumb, but you have to practice that. It's not just going to come inherently. So I was out there practicing that, figuring out a pattern. I was one of those 7-day-a-week grinded out anglers. So my alarm was set 3:30 every day. I'd get up, and luckily I only lived 20 minutes from where I was launching. So I was able to get up, drive there, and I would fish till like 6:15, 6:30, and then pack up and head home. And then I'd work from 7 until 4, 7 until 5, and head back out 6 to 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and just do that, rinse and repeat. So that was my game plan, barring weather. So there was a couple days where you couldn't get out there because the weather was bad, and you got to watch. You can't go out there when there's 3-foot waves. That's not you're not going to enjoy that. So
no.
Luckily this year we had great weather. The patterns were setting up pretty well. We had some good west winds pushing some of that warm water out, so the cold water came in nice and close, which is from a kayak advantage.
Oh yeah,
that's great because you don't have to go 7 miles to find cold water. And the fish were set up pretty well. I never really got deeper than 130 feet, 140 feet maybe. And I think most of my fish probably came in like that 75 to 105 foot range. So nice little, by Port Washington where I was fishing, there's a really nice stretch where you can get that deeper water nice and close. And that's where the fish were stacked up. So it really worked out well.
Yeah, I always like when we can fish in that 60 to 80 on the kayak. Sweet spot for us because you don't have to go so far, yet you still having to work deeper in the water.
We can fish those depths pretty effectively.
Yes.
If you get much deeper,
Yeah.
then you start fishing 150, 120, and it's hard to be effective in the kayak, getting those baits down deeper.
Yeah, like if you have to fish in 100 plus and you have to fish down like 80,
exactly.
90. I found like deeper than 80 starts to get really.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 100%.
Like I'm talking about putting your stuff down that deep.
Exactly.
Not being in depth of water, but like you have to put it down deeper than 60. I start finding it to be a little bit more.
Yeah, just the amount of line you have to let out becomes a liability because if you get spun around in a kayak, which happens pretty easily, you're going to have a big mess on your hands.
Yeah. So, Salmonarama kicks off. Let me preface, or let me ask you this before we get into it or set this up: is you're competing in the kayak division, but there was you set yourself up in a way that allowed you to win Salmonarama. Now, can you explain how that what that was?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two divisions really: the kayak division and the boat division. And most kayak anglers, I think, buy tickets for both. And the reason behind that, you actually can win the grand prize with the kayak only ticket. So if your fish, that one I caught this year, that 35, if that was the biggest fish and I only had a kayak ticket, I could still win the grand prize with that. However, if someone came in with a 35.1, I'm suddenly bumped down to the second biggest fish overall. But with a kayak division ticket only, I'm only eligible for the kayak division prizes. So that's why a lot of kayak anglers end up buying tickets for both, so that in case that happens, they're still eligible for that second place prize overall, which is bigger than the kayak division.
Yeah.
We're working to change that. Obviously, we want some sponsors to jump in and help out with that because I think it'll grow that division. And there's a ton of anglers out there that want that to happen. So really looking for that. But that's why I did it. I think a lot of kayak anglers buy both just in case that exact scenario unfolds. So for me, luckily it did this year.
So now we kind of have this set up here to have a context. Now, you start fishing for this week. Recap the start of the day that you caught. And by the way, if you don't know, he caught a 35-pound king salmon. I distinctly remember we were here at the shop. Leaderboard gets updated. We're keeping an eye on all the categories. And we saw that one day where it's like Nick and it was like 35. I'm like, I said, Rob, like, I think he just won it.
I think I said it was probably a typo.
Well, it's funny you mentioned a typo because as soon as I had that fish registered, then I think the very next person in line, they transposed the length and the weight, and it was like a 37-pounder, but it was really just a 37-inch fish.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well,
it actually happens all the time. It's really easy to make that mistake in the little because we weigh in the fish here and enter it in. It's pretty easy to make that mistake.
Yeah.
So
I wrote a big high, and I was like, oh, well, that was short-lived.
So I see that I'm like, holy, and Rob said what he said, but I'm confident. I distinctly remember saying like, I think he wins it with that fish because just year over year, it seems to be that 33 to 35 is the one that takes it, and I'm like, you can't really get bigger than 35. I mean, like you could theoretically, but like.
And we weren't seeing quite as many like in that low 30s being caught that week. It was a lot of mid 20s. You had a few pushing 30, but like the year before, you were seeing a lot more of the 31, 32.
Yes. Yeah, because that came up in our discussion too. There might have been 3 or 4 fish that were either 30 or just at that 30. I'm like, well, that's not the number wise of fish that big. So that was another reason why I was like, I think he might have pulled this off, man. And of course, when your name was on the board and everyone's like looking every day.
I think no one was looking more often than me, though. So I think I work from home, so I'm constantly on my computer, and I got 2 monitors. I think
you just had the one dedicated to the scoreboard.
Yeah, pretty much.
So walk us through the morning, that whole day. Be detailed. How did it all set up? What were you using? Give us the play-by-play.
Sure thing. So up to that point, so this was Tuesday morning. I'd caught that fish. Again, waking up at 3:30. But up to that day, I really didn't have good luck. I think the biggest fish I caught was maybe 10 pounds, 12 pounds. And when I did have a decent bite, I screwed it up, and the fish got away. It obviously all changed that morning. And of course, this is the only morning I didn't put the camera on the front of the kayak. So I recorded every outing up to this point. I was like, oh, you know what? It's been garbage. I'm not going to put it on. I don't have time. I'm just going to go out fishing quick. Because, I had 2 hours, got to get back to work by 7. So I set out. I think I was the first, maybe the second kayak angler out there. And there was nobody else around.
This is what time in the morning, roughly?
Oh, it must have been about 4.
Sun's not even out yet.
No, it was still dark. You
Yeah,
had headlamps.
okay.
You can see one other light. You don't know if it's a boat or a kayak.
Okay.
But you can see one other light out there. So went out to my normal spot, set up. And the night before, we actually had that storm roll through on Monday morning or Monday evening. So it was still a little choppy. We had a wind, west wind, northwest. That was probably like 10, 12 with gusts in the upper teens. So it wasn't too bad. Got out to 70 feet, set up, and I had a real quick, small circle. I went in about a quarter-mile loop, and then I headed north a little bit and started heading back towards the launch, because at this point now it's 6:15. It's time to go back. It's 5:15. It's time to start heading back towards shore. I got about a mile of trolling left, and by that point it'll be 5:45. I'll just wind it up and head back in. I'm not having a great day. I didn't have a single bite before that. And then my rod bent, and I was like, oh, okay, finally, we got a hit here. It peeled off, I want to say like 250 feet of line only, which is not really that much. I had, before that, some of the 10, 12 pounders, they're taking out like 400 or 500 feet.
They're feisty. Those teeners really make you think it's bigger than what it is, and you pull them in like, oh, it was Then the big guys tend to be.
Yeah, this was lethargic, so it just took out 250
So the rod just
feet.
bent and just did it. It wasn't like this. It was.
You're normally like
Okay.
some pulsations to it, but it only went out 250 feet and then kind of stopped and then came back at me. So now I'm reeling as fast as I can, trying to pick up the line. I got it, and then the line kind of went a little slack in there, and then I felt the weight again. But remember, it's still kind of windy, so now I'm heading into the wind. And if anybody's fished out of a Hobie Pro Angler, the wind is not your friend sometimes when you're going against it. So I got spun around in a circle, and all 3 of my lines got tangled up.
Oh man.
And then the line went slack, and I was like, par for the course. Come on. So I ended up, and people are going to probably not enjoy me saying this, but I set the rod down, and the line was slack. I thought I lost it. I thought I lost the fish. I thought it broke my weight off, and I thought, fantastic. I'm just going to wind this up, and I'm going home. I've had enough of this. So pick up my other 2 rods, a couple minutes to clear those, picked up the rod up that had the fish on it, and there's some weight there. I thought, oh, thank goodness. I'm at least getting my weight back, because these weights aren't cheap. They're like $20, and the clip is $5. So I'm like, well, at least I'm going to get that back, and that's good enough for today. And then I felt the weight of the fish. I was like, man, I got the dumbest fish in all of Lake Michigan. So I had no idea how big it was, because it really didn't pull that hard. I had a slack line for 2 or 3 minutes. I thought, just a standard 10-pound fish. Wound it up, and then finally, you could see the flasher come out of the water, and still, the sun's not up yet. It's still kind of dark. You can see a little bit, but
Yeah.
And then I saw the tail out of the water. I was like, why is it so far back? That shouldn't be back that far. What the heck's going on? And then it got a little closer, and then you see the back of the fish come out of the water. And then when you saw how wide the back of it was, I was like, that's when I realized, I'm like, holy smokes! This is a big fish.
Yeah.
So I grabbed my net, and this is where it comes into practice, because it's chaotic when you get a big fish. Your eyes are huge, and you start shaking a little bit. So I scooped the fish head first, and the fish slid in, and it kind of started sliding back out.
Oh, that's the most nerve-wracking thing. When you see the body slide back out over it, it's the worst.
Yeah, especially because I could see the hook on the outside of its mouth. It's just hooked in the corner, and I'm like, oh, great. Now that's going to catch the net, and it's going to be one flop, and it's going to be gone, and it'll be just a story, and no one's going to believe it. And
Yep.
so I had that fish and slid back out. As it started going back out, I dropped the rod again. Oh, I'm sorry, I had my net with this hand. I dropped the rod again with my left hand, grabbed it by the tail, and just shoved it as far into the net as I could. Picked it up over the side of the kayak, and as I picked it up, I could feel my aluminum hoop on the net bend, and then as I got it about right here, the handle just flew back, and the fish landed right between my knees and on the pedals, and I was like, I just sat. I don't think I moved for probably 5 minutes, and I drifted out, a little closer towards Michigan. I was like, this is unbelievable. I took a picture of it, started flopping. I was holding my hand down on it, and I'm like, you put your hand on a fish, and you could normally grab it. This one, I put my hand down, and
You still had excess.
there's fish on top and bottom. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so tall. Like I've never caught a fish that was that wide before. It was cool.
Did you look at it and immediately know or eye it and be like, this is for sure over 30, let alone this is even bigger than just a normal 30? Like this is a
No,
mid-30s fish.
It's really tough to judge a fish in a kayak. It's easy on a boat. You can hold it up and be like, yeah, well, it's, you get a stable base. And I'm floating around in a little plastic boat. Like I don't have a good stable base to judge it. So I'm kind of looking at it and it's hanging off the side of my kayak and hanging off that side. I'm like, it's tall. I'm like, I bet it's 25. I bet it's a 25-pound fish. It's going to probably be in the top 3 for the kayak division. It wasn't until I really got home and I put it on a scale there and I picked it up with my fish scale and I'm like, there's no way that's right. That can't be right. The scale's got to be off.
So, wait. So you catch it, you go in, you don't even think to like weigh it on the spot. Most guys are weighing their fish like probably on the water immediately,
I didn't
or
have
at least back on shore. So
my scale was at home.
so you took it home.
I told you this was a quick trip before work.
Oh my God!
So I threw it. I had a cooler in the back of my truck, and I threw it in the cooler. There was some ice in there. I got home, picked it up with the scale, and I thought, "There's no way that can't possibly be right." So I got my bathroom scale out there, picked the fish up, standing on the scale, set the fish down, stood on the scale again. I was like, "Holy smokes! That scale was right. This fish is going to be in first place as of today." But I didn't. You guys sounded a little confident when you said, "Oh, 35, that's going to win it." I was not that confident all week long.
Really?
There's so many big fish this past year getting caught. I feel like every other time I looked at the leaderboard, there's a new 30-pounder or a new 28-pounder. I was like, oh, man, it's only a matter of time. I'm going to get bumped.
Yeah,
thankfully.
But I think consistently the last couple of years, it's always a 33. Your fish was a 30 on the bigger side, but like it's a 33.
33 to 35 is like
the typically what ends up taking that first shot. But being on the 35 side, I'm like, dude, he won. I'm like,
well, I'm glad you had that confidence. I did not.
yeah, you looked at it and thought it was 25 pounds. You were a whole 10 pounds.
I mean,
most anglers overshoot their weight,
Well, that was the thing. I called Craig right away, one of the directors from Salmon Unlimited, and he's like, yeah, bring it down. We'll put it on a real scale and we'll tell you what it weighs. I can only imagine, you thank them for their work. I know they do a ton of work putting these tournaments on. I can't imagine the amount of phone calls he gets from anglers being like, yep, this is it. And they put it on a scale and it's, 21. Not that that's a bad fish, but they, eyes are bigger sometimes, right?
Yeah. So you do end up taking it down to racing. You have to do when you have a fish that's potentially a top number 1 fish, you have to bring it down there for the verification at the racing headquarters for Salmonarama. They weigh it on their certified scales. So you go down. What's the reaction? What's going on with the weigh-in over there?
I think Jim did a Facebook Live video of it. As soon as I opened up the cooler, you could see people like, oh yeah, that's a legit fish. That's going to be a good one. So that's why I did the Facebook Live video. A couple other people around. It was early. I mean, I caught it 5:30 in the morning. The fight only took 15 minutes. Drove home right away. I had a couple work meetings, and then I called my boss and said, I got to go to Racine quick. I'll be back. I'm going to miss a couple in the afternoon here. Drove down there. They put it on the scale, and there's not that many people around. I mean, it's 10 a.m., 10:30. The scale's basically just opened. So there's like a couple people there. So it was really exciting putting on the scale. And they actually, Craig was there as well. He was out on a charter boat running a charter that morning. So he came back and they take care of it. They do the weight, and then you go right to the fillet station. I think everyone who's in the fishing community heard of what happened in the Erie Trail. Walleye trail. So
yeah, wait, because
we're ahead of that. We already got these fish.
Did that happen before Salmonarama, right?
It happened after.
It was after Salmonarama.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
But yeah, traditionally, any first place fish or any money, big fish in Salmonarama, they've always been cut open and inspected to make sure there's nothing funny in there.
So
no
they
weights.
do a great job. They're well ahead of that trend, if you want to call it that, unfortunately.
Yeah. So they give you the official weight. What was it again? 35.
It was 34.94, I think.
I mean,
yeah,
practically there.
Yeah,
practically there. And then, what day of Salmonarama was this again that you caught it? This was
Tuesday morning. So
it started on Saturday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So 4 days in.
Yep.
Or so.
Yep.
And so I remember that happened, and then, I mean, it was almost instantaneously. Like we're here at the shop and people are coming in. Hey, you heard some kayak guy caught this big, number, was in first place, and everybody was talking about it, wondering how that was all going to play out. Now, Saturday's the final day for weigh-ins.
Sunday.
Correct, Sunday. So walk us through Sunday. I'm sure every day, as you said, you had the monitor up. You're looking at the leaderboard. What happens on Sunday when it's all said and done for the final standings?
Well, I still went out fishing every day because in my mind, if I didn't go out and someone caught one, someone would definitely have caught one bigger, and then I'd had no excuse and no one to blame but myself. I had the opportunity to go, so I did. But Sunday, I think the speed limit's 70 on the way down to Kenosha. I probably was pushing 80 the whole way down there, trying to get there as fast as possible. It was anxious because I know that people are still out fishing hard that last morning, coming back to the scales with some fish that day. And I think actually the first place lake trout, I think, came back that morning as well. And I think it was over 30, if I'm not mistaken. So it was nervous. It wasn't a easy feeling. That was a very long 5 or 6 days waiting, clicking the refresh button. I kind of wish it would have went a little quicker. But ultimately, it ended great for me. I was super happy with the result, obviously. Very grateful. Lucky to have it happen the way it did. People do everything right and lose these fish. I did
everything wrong.
Everything wrong, and still ended up with the fish.
I think the part that'll probably blow most people's minds is the you put the rod back in the rod holder and the fish.
It wasn't even in the rod. I just set it on the deck of my kayak.
It's even better.
Yeah, I mean, if the fish swam away, my rod probably would have went with it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my God. Now, is this the first time a kayak angler's won like the grand prize?
Yeah, the absolute whole thing.
Yeah,
it's the first time for kayak anglers have placed in like the top 10 for Kings or whatever, but have never taken the entire grand prize.
So, your feelings on essentially cementing yourself in the Hall of
Salmonarama history?
Yeah, history.
It was only a matter of time, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good kayak anglers that are out there. We can all probably think of 5 that if they would have caught it, would have been zero surprise that they would have came away with this fish. We pull the same lures. We're using the same baits. We go the same speed. The fish has no idea what's pulling that lure around. They don't care if it's a $50,000 or $100,000 boat or a $5,000 kayak. It makes no difference to the fish.
Well, good segue because you mentioned, what you were pulling. What were you pulling? In fact, you were kind enough to bring it here.
I did.
And so can you walk through the setup, what you're running, how you're running it,
Sure.
and then even a little more specifically, what was your speed that day, and the details on that troll?
Yeah, this is the exact lure I caught it on. So I was fishing standard flash. I think everyone's got this color in their box. If not,
Dragon Slayer.
Go ahead and get one. Little boy blue fly, white beads. That's it. This is actually the exact. I didn't even change it. This is the exact rig I caught it on. So,
and that's a lot of beads on there.
That is
more than the
I'm gonna have to
usual
do a
amount of
close up on
beads.
this. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's something 6 or 7 beads on there.
And that's your homemade fly.
yeah, I tied these myself.
Yep.
And now you took the table.
You know what? I hooked your table. So. That's how big it is, right?
That's
there.
how the fish caught it. You probably just hooked him. He was swimming around. He just got hooked. But what's interesting is this back is a little bit different. I think.
Yeah, I was not.
The Dragon Slayer is
show
that
that.
we
Well,
had.
the chrome has just plain back, but
Yeah,
the
this
white has a glow back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Obviously, this is a standard right off the shelf. So
Yep.
I didn't do anything to that one.
No. I guess I didn't realize the white had that, or
Yep.
maybe I have the chrome one, and that's why.
I have the
Perhaps.
chrome one too, but usually by the midsummer I start pulling white everything. It just seems that white in that mid-July range really kind of kicks up and becomes a prominent color at that point.
Yeah. And then of course you're pulling it. You got the torpedo here. You can show that as well.
Yeah, so getting the stuff down, I found less is more. I know there's guys out there that have downriggers on their kayaks, but man, that's a lot of gear to put in the water. It's a lot of stuff to pull around. So if you're unfamiliar, this is just a torpedo diver. This is the 12-ounce version, standard 12-ounce, 30-pound steel leader with an OR-16 clip. So you want the OR-16 because it's got that pin, because this can slide off of your braid, and you don't want to lose these. These aren't cheap, but that's a great way to get it down. So the 12-ouncer is what I'll run when I'm running flasher flies. It'll get it down probably 75 feet. I can get it down to comfortably.
Yeah.
If you let out like 130, 140 feet of line. So you're letting out, there's a lot of line to get it out that far, but
and you have to do it carefully too. I think for anybody listening that if you're going to try this, you just can't shoot all 130 out.
Oh,
you have to,
mess, yeah.
you got to 50, 60 troll, let it settle, and then start walking it back out. Because if you throw it all at once, it'll drop.
Oh yeah, you don't want to just let it go straight to the bottom.
Yeah,
You'll have a mess.
You got to do it in like incremental and keep letting it out. And then what was your speed? What was your speed you were trolling at when it hit?
I try to hold like in that 2 to 2.2 range. It's tough when you have 3 lines out to go much faster than that. But with the wind and the waves, you can kind of sometimes get up to like that 3 miles an hour if you're not careful. The fish aren't going to hit that. It doesn't look right going through the water. Same thing with the currents. You got to watch the currents a little bit. So if your rod starts pulling a little heavier, maybe 1.8 is the right speed. So you just kind of have to get a feel for it, and you will over time. You just kind of pick that up inherently. And for me, around 2 miles an hour seems to work really well. It's easy to maintain that. You can do it for a few hours before you get really kind of tired. So works out well.
Yeah, I agree, especially for a kayak. I know boat guys some guys will rip it up closer to 3, and I mean, we'll talk when we have some of our guests, and we'll talk about how they like to go fast. But I think the uniqueness out of a kayak is different. Is I always find that 2 to 2.2, generally speaking, kind of gets you carry you a long ways. And then if you are pedaling specifically, then it's more sustainable. Yeah, versus
absolutely.
trying to go 2.7 and 3, you're just ripping away all day.
No, you can do it, but you're going to be exhausted.
You're going to feel it. Yeah, you might not have any gas left to bring you back into the shore. You have to get some help. Let me ask you, now that you have this under your belt going into this year for 2023, any thoughts and feelings about any pressures that may be there for you to repeat at all?
I mean, I don't think there's pressure there. I don't think the expectation is there either. Catching this fish may have been a once in a lifetime. May never catch one that big again. So I had it mounted. I got a replica on the wall. So made a memory of it. Something I always look back at, but I'll never forget that experience out there catching it either. I'll be out there. I'll do the kayak division again. I plan to go out there and fish it. So,
and you did well in the kayak division too, not just winning Salmonarama, but
True. I was lucky enough. Actually, this is the exact same Tuesday. I went back out there, same spot. It was a different flasher fly setup, but caught a 22-pounder, which was good enough for second place in the kayak division as well. Those are the only 2 bites I had that entire day. That was it.
2 big bites, but it goes to show you like that's all it takes. You can grind it out all week, and you're just looking for 1 or 2 big bites for that week. No one really cares about numbers. I would say everyone's just looking for the big bite, which is why guys will go out there at 2 a.m. and fish throughout the night because they're just looking for that one big bite. So you're pulling obviously a flasher fly. Were you running 3 rod setup?
Yeah, I always run 3.
What was typically on the other 2 rods?
So
not specifically, but was it flasher fly? Was it Dodger? Was it spoons?
Yeah, at that point I knew flasher fly because leading up to that I did a little pre-fishing, and then during the tournament I caught 1 fish on a spoon before that, maybe 2, but everything else was flasher fly for the entire tournament for me. So I put 2 flasher flies out, and I had a third one out the back, which was a spoon. I always run a spoon out the back if I can, because the last thing I want is 3 of these things out there, because when these get tangled up, you might as well start cutting lines, because you're not gonna untangle these too easily. So spoon out the back. I put it out like 80 feet, clip on my a 4-ounce version of the same torpedo diver, and then I send that out another 100 feet.
So you're running all your lines on deeper torpedo setups.
Yeah,
it's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight, but for me, I find that that's the most efficient way to get my stuff out there and get it down fast. The 12 ounce is heavy. You have to have the right rod to do it. You can't put it on like a medium light. It's got to have the right backbone. But I want that line to go almost straight down. The straighter down, the better, because that's less slack. It's less stuff that can get tangled up.
Let me pick your brain on this. I'm curious. You're running the spoon off the torpedo down your chute, and why not a lead core? I guess would be the question. Not that it is right or wrong. I'm just curious.
There's nothing wrong with lead core.
No.
Sometimes lead core works better.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah. But I'm just curious, the thought process.
I was getting bites on the torpedo diver. Okay. It's less line in the water.
Sure.
It's 1 less rod I got to take with me. So just send it out the back. And I knew it was a flasher fly bite anyway. So the spoon is really in case there's a steelhead or something else that's hanging around. But
so you were just all bets were in on your flasher fly. That was your high confidence and.
That's at that point in the tournament. Yeah, that's where I had the most confidence. So I had 2 of them out, trying to maximize my opportunities to get a good bite. And thankfully worked out well.
Yeah. Let me ask you, since you're kind enough to show us the flasher here that caught that fish, what are some other ones colors that you like for your flashers?
I was telling Rob before we started, turn the cameras on. I bought it on a clearance rack from, I don't even know where, but I probably bought it 10, 15 years ago, and it probably was 10, 15 years old at that point when I bought it. But a Beach-Old, I can't even say it.
The Beck-Old flasher.
Plain white with the white crinkle on both sides. It's the oldest thing. I don't think I've ever seen one from anybody else, but it catches fish. A couple years back, I think I won the kayak division, and it was on that flasher fly, a Mirage fly set up off of that. And then this year was the Dragon Slayer.
I want to circle back. It's interesting. Even though you hooked the table, you can't pull up and maybe show. I might have to get a close. You can rip out the sign. But so this fly, this is you tied it yourself, correct?
Yeah, I tied these. Let's see, so getting ready for Salmonarama, I realized I didn't have enough flies. So I was looking at, thanks, Rob.
There we go. We got the,
so
this is ripping right out of there.
I was looking at the my fly box, and I was like, I really only got like probably 3 flies that I really want to put out there. I probably have a box of 10 or 20, but there's probably 3 where I was like, yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna put that one out. I'm gonna hang on to the hook this time.
Yeah.
So I tied a bunch up that Tuesday. I ordered some stuff online. Showed up, I think like Monday. I tied flies on Tuesday, and they sat in my like kitchenette area on the table there until they were fully dried on Wednesday. And then I tied this one up Thursday, fished with it Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And Tuesday paid off. Actually, I fished with this one the whole tournament. Never took this one off after that.
The reason I ask you about it is because it is unique, and Rob kind of made the little joke about the beads, but there are
and they're white beads.
3,
and I only know one other
8.
person that uses white beads.
Wait, who?
Blake.
So
they're white because that's what Amazon had on sale. Yeah, I think they were the cheapest.
is that there's no rhyme or reason? It's just you just grabbed them for that reason, or did you like white?
I like white. Everything. Okay. All the fish, their base color, all the lures, their base colors are always white. If you look at an alewife, it's white, silver color. I mean, you can use other beads. I've got other bead colors. Like I'll occasionally throw like a green in there, a yellow. I got some purple iridescent ones. But I always come back to white. It's just a universal color. It goes with every color fly as well. So if I have a green fly, a white fly, this little boy blue fly, it goes with all of them. So that's why I buy them. You can buy them in bags of 100. I think Amazon sells them for like $4 or something. They're super cheap. That's it. Nothing fancy.
And then the top part of it, you actually have a little head on here.
Yeah, I was gonna that's why I was holding on to that part to not show people, but
I'll edit that part out.
No, it's totally fine. I actually found this slightly larger head I found was working better. I don't know why. Just maybe it looks different. I'm not sure. But the bullet heads, I had one bullet head on this side, and this one was always on this side. And I was finding I would catch 2, maybe 3 fish on this one, and I had the same flasher fly, same color fly. The flasher was the chrome version of this, and I would get maybe one fish to every 2 or 3 on this one. So maybe it's something with the head of the fly. I'm not sure, but it worked out really well for me.
It's real interesting. It's like those little devil in the details kind of things. You observe like, oh, there's something different about how that whole thing is set up from what you kind of normally see, and obviously it works.
Yeah, and the beads, I probably do have too many on there, but the salmon, when they bite your fly, they're biting the tail of the fish because then it's easier for them to catch afterward. So maybe just by coincidence, I had too many flies or too many beads and just bit the back of the fly trying to kill it. And
well, I noticed when I held it up, I noticed when I held it up that with all those beads, it holds pretty stiff.
Yeah, it does.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think everyone, I think this is 25. I don't even know what this is. It might be 25-pound fluoro. I think other guys run like 40 or 50 because it's stiffer.
Yeah.
I don't measure my leads either. I just about that long. Yep, tie it up.
This is an amazing story. he just put his. For all intents and purposes, it seems like a crap shot. Like I just put everything together, and then the story about how you caught him.
The fine details don't matter.
He's breaking the norms.
The exact length that this is between the armrests of my Hobie Advantage seat. So the end of the flasher here, the tip of the fly goes there, and that's how long it is. So I think it's like it might be 22 inches. I don't know, 24. It's probably 24.
That's impressive. That's definitely impressive. Well, thank you for sharing that part. I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a lot of people hitting you up about getting flies done. I'm sure.
Some guy did ask me at Salmonarama, and I'm like, yeah, but I only tied like 12 of these because it's it's a little time intensive to tie up your own flies.
Yeah.
I gotta find a quicker way. I thread tie and then glue it. I gotta find a quick way to do that, and then maybe you can make some.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have the whole Nick line of flies coming soon.
All with some little defects that don't work that right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Every leader is a different length.
Yeah, that would actually be hilarious. We should do that for April Fools. Just release a phony line of flies, and they're just all wrong, just random. Nick, for anyone listening that doesn't kayak fish, what would you say to them, and give them a reason why they should consider trying it out, maybe getting into the sport of kayak fishing?
If you really enjoy fishing, you want to get out there more, but just don't have either the means for a boat or the space for a boat, this is a great way to do it. Because I used to put my Pro Angler, which is one of the bigger kayaks, I used to put it on top of my car and transport it that way. So you can transport it a number of ways and get it to wherever you want to go. It allows you the flexibility to get to some of those spaces that you can't get to in a boat sometimes. So you can launch from a beach, you can launch from shore. You can figure out if you want to go someplace else and don't have to worry about trailering a boat the whole way up there. So works out pretty well. For those guys that have experience in a boat already, this is just one step up. I think, from a competition level, because in a boat, you have someone that's probably driving. You have someone else that's probably going to net. All you really have to focus on is just winding the fish in. In a kayak, you're the engine, the navigator, the angler, the netman. You have to do it all. Yeah. So it's a little more challenging.
Yeah, yeah, and I would argue more rewarding when you do pull in that fish, because it's like in order to net a fish out of the kayak, that essentially says that you did everything along the way. All these multi parts that there's so many times throughout this process up until you land the fish in your kayak that you could lose them. Usually I say the prime two are essentially when you first hook up with them, and if you misplay your drag and they go for that run, it's going to pop or something's going to happen with your line. And then the next big part of it is when it comes to the net job. It's probably the first way most guys will lose their fish is their blood is pumping. They see the fish. Now they see it surface like, oh my God, it's big. And they're doing this and they're trying to do this and not watching their movement, and pop, there it goes.
Yeah, you can't step back. So how many guys on a boat, you're like, oh, just step back.
Walk them in.
Yeah, just walk it in. And it's easy. I shouldn't say it's easy. There's challenges obviously in a boat as well, but you have the option to walk back. In a kayak, you can't really stand up in many of these kayaks, and nor should you on Lake Michigan sometimes, because it's not the safest body of water every day. So you gotta be not perfect, but you can't make many mistakes when that kayak and that fish are real close together, because they do make that big run, or they're going to dive into your pedals, or some goofy thing is going to happen, and you got to be ready for it.
It will, and it generally will. Something will happen. And I know it's noticed with Big King specifically. Once you get them by the kayak, if you have not worn them out properly and they still have energy while you're kayak, they're going to go under your kayak and want to go across under, and they will catch into your drive, whatever.
Or your other line that's still over there. Something is going to.
So, wear them out. That being said, let me ask you this. So that was a nice tip there for folks that give them an incentive to try it out. My question now is for guys that are already kayak fishing, but they're doing it for inland bass, other species, and they're curious and interested. Maybe this year I want to kind of dabble in salmon and trout in Lake Michigan. What would be a tip for you? What would a tip for them be that you would give them?
Yeah, so I would first start off with making sure you're really comfortable with your setup. The last thing you want to do is go out on Lake Michigan where the waters can be 45, 50 degrees on the surface and not be experienced and get in rough water, and suddenly you're over your head. So making sure that you're safe, watch the weather, make sure you go out there in good conditions. But if you want to get out there and try salmon, try them when they're a little closer. So the springtime, go out there when it's a nice calm day. Those coho will bite all day long. You don't have to get out there at the crack of dawn or at dark. You can go out there at noon and they'll still be there.
Yeah.
So I know you do a lot of coho fishing as well. And I've seen a lot of videos, and they're there. It's not super complicated. They're not giant fish. You don't have to worry about having 900 feet of line on your rod, you can just go out there with a walleye setup or even a spinning rod.
Yeah,
and
catch them on your
just
bass
fine.
tackle. A lot of bass
Yeah.
lures
Yeah.
work great.
Yeah.
And they're delicious. Hands
Yeah.
down, they are the most delicious of the salmon.
Fill the freezer up before June is done. So
Yeah. No, that's great. Rob, any questions before we wrap this thing up?
No, I don't have any questions.
Awesome.
well, thanks for having me.
Nice
I appreciate
contributions to the conversation as always. I think it's gonna become a meme.
No,
where I just
actually,
ask
what
you-
we should ask about the 2023 Great Lakes Kayak Fishing Series. What's planned for that?
Yeah. Let's make sure we
Because
do talk
last
about
time we did this podcast, I don't think we had the dates set yet, and this time we do.
that. Oh, so I guess it's a good thing. I'm gonna just say it now. This is our second.
It's kind of
taping.
deja vu, actually.
Yeah, this is our second time doing this podcast with Nick. He's been kind enough to come back because I may have accidentally deleted the footage from the first one. So maybe this was the reason why. Lo and behold, it was so that you could come back and actually share the dates.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
I feel vindicated now. All right.
So I don't have the dates memorized. We do have one it's going to start in April. I think it's like the 22nd is when we kick things off. The dates will be posted on our website, our Facebook page as well. So go there and check out the dates. We are still waiting for permits to get finalized, which we want to make sure we have those in place before we put the Tourney X sign up out there. So we're real close. As soon as we get those permits approved from the DNR, we'll get those posted and get those out there. But starting in April, we'll fish through the end of August. And then at that point, we'll identify our champions from our club and then qualification to the Badger State Kayak Championship, which is going to be throughout the state of Wisconsin. There's 4 clubs that compete. So all of them are great clubs. Check them out. If you want to get involved with some competitive or even just fun fishing, you don't have to be super competitive if you don't want to be. But then that'll be a qualification for that championship in September.
And how many events is it gonna be for you guys this season?
So it's going to be 5 bass events.
Okay.
And then that 6th one, if you qualify, will be in September. But we also have a salmon event too. So if you really want to learn how to catch salmon, it's either the springtime or the fall is when you should do it.
Yeah.
In the fall, if you want to catch big kings, come out in the fall. And you can still use your same bass gear.
Yeah.
Make sure you got some 20-pound test line, I would say minimum, and you really just need crankbaits. You're just catching kings going up the river, but they are so much fun and they pull so hard. So
Yeah.
It's a really cool tournament. I think in the past we've had people
Yeah.
catch their first salmon. Like anybody can go up there and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would point out that salmon event, even though it's part of the series, it's its own standalone thing.
Yeah, it doesn't
So it doesn't
contribute.
contribute. So
Yeah.
so you don't necessarily have to even participate in the other stuff you don't want to, but you can still come out for that one thing and use it as a way to kind of get acclimated. You meet other anglers and get a feel for it all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not tied to AOI, so you can come out and do just that one. And it's a great way to meet other guys that are doing it as well. So if you don't feel comfortable going out there on your own, you can meet some people there, kind of connect with them and figure out how do you meet up with them to go out together. So you have that kind of buddy system going on.
Awesome, man. So the website, again, for everyone, they can check out the information.
Yeah, it's Great Lakes or glkfs.com or our Facebook page, which is Great Lakes Kayak Fishing Series.
There it is. So, Nick, thank you so much for coming back again to share your story with us.
problem.
Hopefully, we acted pretty good. Like we heard the story for the first time. Like, oh my god, that's how it happened. I made sure to be like, whoa, yes. No, but really appreciate you for sharing your story, and it's definitely a great one. I'm excited for people to hear it and honestly to get the reactions. I'm curious to see what people say about it. Like, he did everything wrong and still won.
Yeah,
Amazing.
super lucky. I'll be the first to tell you straight up. I probably shouldn't have landed that fish, but whatever. It worked out. So.
And then on top of that, you get the guys that are so serious, so detail oriented. My leader is 23.5 inches. I only use these, like, so specific on every rig. You're like, I don't know how long my leaders are.
Yeah.
I don't know how pound test that is.
that
It
long.
doesn't matter.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Those fish come in, they see it. They're
Just rubbing
committed.
it into those guys.
Sorry.
You're
for
adding
those
to
guys.
it right now.
I apologize to those guys. If you're one of them,
You know what?
keep
Here,
doing what you're doing.
folks, I'm happy to announce a new product line here from Lake Michigan Angler. It's the Rando line. It's just going to be a collection of flasher flies, pre-rigged, and it's just a potluck draw of you get 8 inches or you get 35 inches on your flasher.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. We're just gonna, and you might have one beat, or we'll put 30 on your fly. It's just That's what we're going to be working on for 2023. Nick, thank you so much again for being here with us. Make sure you guys check them all out. Share the video with everyone else, and we will see you guys on the next episode.